Okay, everyone. So this is part two of the What Can You Do project that we're doing in After Effects. Um, what you should do right away is download the After Effects file for part one. That should be attached to the assignment right now. So we're not starting from the beginning. We're starting after part one's been completed. So make sure to complete part one before you move on to this. In the timeline, drag the shape layer beneath all the other layers. So let's just go to After Effects. I'm going to even go back further one step. I'm going to get rid of the shape layer by pressing the delete key. So I've got the shape layer highlighted. I'll press the delete key just to go back a step. In order to make the shape layer, you want to make sure that no layers are selected. So you would click in the blank space over here, or you could choose edit, deselect all will also work. And then when you have that done, you should be able to double click the rectangle tool. And that's going to make a shape that covers the frame. So the instructions were to now drag that shape layer to the bottom. So I would click and drag it to the bottom and then release it. So now I'll do it one more time. Command Z as in zebra. I'll click and drag it to the bottom so that now you actually see the text on top of that shape layer. Back to the tutorial. In the timeline, expand the properties of layer 1 and then expand the transform properties of layer 1. So in After Effects, remember that we'll be working a lot in this area in the timeline. Here's how you expand the properties tab. So we're in layer 1. I'm going to click the arrow to expand, and these are the properties. It should look like this. Then I'm going to expand my transform properties by clicking that arrow as well. So the arrow is to expand or collapse. So we're expanding right now. We're going to be working with the position in the property panel today. So back to the tutorial. We need to be make sure to be located at the beginning of the timeline. You can click the home key, and that'll take you to the beginning. So back in After Effects, if let's say the timeline indicator or the time indicator or playhead is here, it's at 4 seconds right now. I could click the home key on my keyboard, and that'll bring me to the front. And you want to make sure that you're at the front or at the beginning of the timeline before we start working on this. Next, it says choose position. We're going to create a keyframe by clicking the stopwatch icon. Keyframes are very important. If you get into the habit of working with After Effects, you'll get to know keyframes. If you work with Adobe Premiere Pro, you'll know keyframes. A lot of editing software uses keyframes. They're basically, they start or stop something that's going to happen. So we're going to change the position of the text. So we're going to use the keyframes to help us. So the first thing we're going to do is we've got our properties panel open, and we're going to change the position. We're going to click the stopwatch here to create our first keyframe. So I'm clicking the stopwatch, and you can see what that did. It brought this keyframe right here. The blue diamond is the keyframe. So again, I'll click the stopwatch again, it goes away. I'll click it again, and there's your keyframe. So that's the first keyframe. And because our playhead is at the beginning of the timeline, that's where the keyframe is going to be. You can actually see it right there. That's the keyframe. Okay, so back back to the tutorial. There's not much here, so we'll get through this pretty quickly. Advance in the timeline to the end by clicking the end key. So we're going to do the opposite of what we did before. Right now, the time indicator's at the beginning because we pressed home. Now we're going to press the end key, and that brings the indicator to the end. You could also drag it back and forth, but it is more reliable to press the end key and the home key if you're trying to get it to the beginning of or the end. The next instructions are create a new keyframe in the position property by clicking the keyframe icon. So this is another way to make a keyframe. We go back to the positions panel or the properties panel. We see position. Here's where we create a keyframe. I'll just click this button right here, and it goes from dim to blue, and that means a new keyframe was created. I can go back and forth between my keyframes. I've only got two right now, one at the beginning and one at the end. So if I click this arrow, it's going to take me to the first keyframe. If I click this arrow, it takes me to the last keyframe. So that's how you can go back and forth between the keyframes with these arrows here. So now, since I click this arrow last, my playhead should be at the last keyframe. Back to the tutorial. Change the position of layer 1 by dragging the horizontal slider to the right so the text moves from the left side of the frame to the right. To the right side of the frame, and that'll be the last thing we do. So it wasn't really that much, even though it's a lot of information. I'm still on that last keyframe. Here I'm on the first keyframe. Here I'm on the second keyframe. So I'm going to change the position of that second keyframe by either clicking and then changing the number, or you could use the slider to click and drag. So just change that number so it drags a little bit to the right side and release. You can see that what I did, I'll press Command Z to go backwards. That sends the text back, but let me bring it out again by using that slider again over here, clicking and dragging. And now I'm going to release. So that's all that we're doing, and then I'll save it by going File Save, and then you'll upload that again to the assignment so that we have part 2 finished and uploaded to the assignment. So I'll stop recording now.